The video was supposed to be just another upload. A smiling face, a familiar intro, and a loyal audience ready to watch. But what viewers didn't know was that behind the camera, something was already terribly wrong. And by the time anyone realized it, 3 lives had been lost. His name was Jason Reid. 29 years old, living in Phoenix, Arizona. Jason was what many would call a rising YouTuber. His channel focused on lifestyle content, day-in-the-life videos, challenges, and occasional pranks. Nothing extreme, nothing controversial. He had built a small but loyal audience. People liked him because he felt real, approachable, like someone you could trust. Off-camera, Jason's life seemed just as normal. He lived in a modest apartment complex, drove a used sedan, and kept a tight circle of friends. Neighbors described him as quiet but polite, someone who kept to himself, but always said hello. There were no obvious warning signs, at least, not at first. Before everything changed, Jason's routine was predictable. Wake up, film, edit, upload. He spent hours perfecting his content, often staying up late to respond to comments and plan future videos. He cared about his image, and more importantly, how people saw him. But behind that carefully built persona, cracks were beginning to form. Friends later mentioned that Jason had become increasingly stressed. His channel wasn't growing as fast as he wanted. Views were dropping. Comments were becoming more critical. At first, he laughed it off. Then, he stopped laughing. The shift was subtle. Fewer uploads, less energy on camera, longer gaps between posts. And then, one night, everything changed. It started with a live stream. Jason went live unexpectedly, something he hadn't done in weeks. At first, it seemed normal. He talked casually, answered questions, even joked with viewers. But something felt off. His tone, his expressions. There was a tension that didn't quite match his words. About 20 minutes in, he abruptly ended the stream. No explanation, just silence. The next morning, the first call came in. A concerned neighbor reported unusual noises coming from Jason's apartment the night before. It wasn't loud enough to raise immediate alarm, but enough to feel wrong. Police arrived later that day. What they found inside would quickly turn a quiet apartment into an active investigation. 3 individuals were discovered inside. No immediate explanation, no signs of forced entry, and no clear motive. Jason was nowhere to be found. That was the moment everything shifted. The case spread quickly. News outlets picked it up, and social media exploded. His channel, once known for harmless content, became the center of a growing mystery. Where was Jason Reid? Investigators began piecing together the timeline. The live stream was the last confirmed sighting. After that, his phone went offline. His car was still parked outside, his belongings untouched. It was as if he had simply vanished. But something didn't add up. Detectives reviewed the live stream footage again, this time more carefully, frame by frame, looking for anything out of place. And that's when they noticed it. In the background, barely visible, a reflection in a mirror, a shadow, movement that didn't match Jason's position. It was subtle, easy to miss, but once seen, impossible to ignore. The investigation deepened. Neighbors were interviewed. Some reported seeing visitors in the days leading up to the incident. Others mentioned hearing arguments, quiet but intense. Still, no one could confirm exactly who had been there that night. Then came another breakthrough: phone records. Jason had been in contact with multiple individuals shortly before the live stream. Messages that started friendly but gradually became tense. Some of those individuals matched the identities of the people found in the apartment, which raised a critical question. Were they invited or were they lured? As more evidence surfaced, a pattern began to form. Jason had arranged meetings under the pretense of collaboration, filming ideas, content discussions, potential partnerships. Nothing unusual for someone in his position, except none of those collaborations were ever posted. The investigation turned toward Jason himself, not just where he was, but who he really was. Friends described him as driven, sometimes overly focused on success. Others mentioned a growing frustration with his online presence. But no one believed he was capable of something like this, until investigators uncovered something else. Unpublished footage, stored on his computer. Videos that were never meant to be seen. They weren't graphic, but they revealed something disturbing. Jason talking to himself, practicing scenarios, rehearsing conversations, and in some cases, expressing anger toward people he believed had wronged him. It wasn't enough to explain everything, but it changed the direction of the case. Days later, Jason was located, hundreds of miles away, in a small town outside the city. He didn't resist arrest. He didn't try to run. In fact, he seemed calm, almost too calm. During questioning, Jason initially denied everything, claimed he left before anything happened, said he had no idea what investigators were talking about. But the evidence continued to build. The messages, the footage, the timeline, and then the final piece. A fragment of video recovered from a deleted file. Short, incomplete, but clear enough. It showed Jason alone in the apartment after the live stream ended, moving through the space. Not panicked, not confused, but deliberate. That was the moment the case changed. Confronted with the evidence, Jason's story began to shift. Details didn't match, explanations fell apart, and eventually, the truth came into focus. The meetings weren't random, they were planned, carefully. The live stream wasn't just content, it was a cover, a way to create an alibi, to make it seem like everything was normal, while something else was happening just out of view. In court, prosecutors laid out the case step by step. They showed how Jason used his platform to build trust, how he arranged meetings, and how he tried to control the narrative even after everything had happened. The defense argued mental strain, pressure, isolation, but the pattern was clear, and the jury saw it. Jason Reid was found guilty. The courtroom remained silent as the verdict was read. 3 lives lost, 1 carefully constructed image completely shattered. He was sentenced to life in prison. And just like that, the man who once spoke to thousands through a screen was left with nothing but silence. But even after the trial, one question lingered. How did no one see it sooner? Investigators later said the answer was simple, because he didn't look dangerous. He looked normal. He smiled. He joked. He built trust. And that's what made it so difficult to detect. Today, the case serves as a reminder of something unsettling. That sometimes the person you watch, the person you follow, the person you think you know, may be hiding a reality you could never imagine. Because not every story is what it seems on camera. And sometimes, the truth only appears after it's far too late.